everyone. This is Jim Ludwick from Main Street Financial Planning, and this is the first episode of Ask an Expert. And we want to introduce you to one of our new planners, Eric Jorgensen, who is an expert.
Good morning, Jim.
How are you doing, Eric? Are you having a good day?
Absolutely. Loving it.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you here on our first episode of Ask an Expert. And you have developed an expertise in special needs planning. Can you tell us what special needs planning is?
Sure. So special needs planning, it encompasses planning for individuals that may have disabilities or parents that may need nursing home care, anything out of the quote-unquote norm. So a traditional family would plan for their retirement and their their end of life. The non-traditional special needs families have to take into account more than just their own situation. They have to take into account what's going to happen to their children when they pass. If they have, perhaps they have parents that they're caring for, or siblings they're caring for, and they have to take. So there's more intricacies. There's more levels and layers that they have to plan for than just, are we going to be able to fund our retirement and get us meet all of our goals.
So you said special needs is different from traditional planning. What are some of the challenges that families and individuals face in this kind of an arena?
The biggest challenges that come to mind are what resources are available, where do we turn, and how much is it going to cost us? Are there resources that we don't have to pay for? Are there, if we do have to pay for it, what are some tools that we have to save for this? How much should we be? In the example of a disabled child that they may or may not, they're going to get Social Security, but how do you keep their benefits and still make sure they have additional money that's not going to be above and beyond what the asset level is that Social Security says they can have?
Any other challenges that they face?
The other big challenge is who's going to take care of them after mom and dad or the caretaker is gone. So if you're caring for a brother or a sister that can't take care for themselves, or you have a child who can't take care of themselves, who's going to look after them? So it's really important to start looking at estate planning and taking into account what are the next steps when we're gone. Who's going to be around to help them out?
Well, give us an idea of your background and experience in this area.
Sure. So my background, I have a son with autism. I was widowed in 2012. When my wife was alive, she and I never did any planning. We planned for the eventuality of something happening to me because I was active duty Navy. I was on submarines. And, the probability, as we saw it, was very likely that I would die first, and we would need to make sure that my wife and my son were taken care of in that eventuality. Unfortunately, what happened was my wife passed before me, and we didn't have anything set up in terms of how to help me take care of my son. So I went from being the provider to trying to figure everything out and being a single dad as well. So it was an interesting transition and a very, very challenging. So my goal is to help other families avoid learning the hard way like I did.
Right. Well, as a minimum, what should families with special needs do? What do they need to do?
At a minimum, they need to have an estate plan. They need to have a guardian appointed for their minor child. They need to have a discussion about should they have guardianship over their adult child, meaning should they be making decisions for their adult child or not? And if they are, who's going to be taking over when they're gone? Because none of us are going to live forever. They really, really need to make sure they have met with an attorney and gotten things in place and communicated those wishes with other people in their family, so everybody knows what's expected and what the next steps are. They should also meet with a planner to identify how they're going to fund their goals, and how much is it going to cost, and some saving strategies.
Are there reference books or videos or tools that you could recommend to the public to get an initial idea of all of these facets they have to be aware of?
The best resource I've found so far, and this is Maryland specific, is Pathfinders for Autism has a website that has a list of resources on their website and a checklist per age. Now, the checklist is not Maryland specific, and that checklist is amazing. It breaks it down from 0 to 11, from birth to 11, 12 years old, the teenage years, and then after the children are out of school. And that's a free resource on the Pathfinders for Autism website. There are some books out there. I haven't read them all, so I'm not sure which ones are really quality. But the biggest resource is going to be that website, and then talk to organizations like your local ARCs, ARC. The various chapters of the ARCs, depending on where you live, can often give you resources for other organizations, things like respite, and funding sources like the Low Intensity Support Services, which is a grant that Maryland gives.
You mentioned ARC, ARC. Is that just an acronym, or does that stand for something?
It used to stand for something. They did away with the acronym many years ago because it's no longer politically correct. So now it is just the ARC. It doesn't. The acronym is dead and gone.
Okay. So if somebody was Googling it, they would just Google ARC all caps, and they'd find that information out.
And you can go by county, by state, or by the United States. The ARC of the United States, the ARC of Maryland or Virginia, or the ARC of Howard County, or the ARC of New York City. They'll have various resources.
Well, that's outstanding, Eric. Thank you very much for answering questions as our first expert, Ask an Expert, from Main Street Financial Planning. We're glad to have you here as part of our team. And tune in again in just over a month when we'll be back together and have another episode of Ask an Expert. This is Jim Ludwick from Main Street Financial Planning, wishing you a wonderful day.